Okay, team, it's been literally ages. So I just want to say welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much to those of you who have like stuck it out with me through all these years. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. But especially to my anxiety community, I know I do not update you guys enough when it comes to these. And I know that I don't update you enough when it comes to my journey, because I really cannot tell you how much it means to me when I get messages like from the original video that I did, and you can tell that it's so old. I think what now, it's like 5 years now that I talked about panic disorder. And you can see it's old by like literally like one, how I look, I'm like a baby, to the fact that my accent has changed after so many years of living in the UK. And I just want to say thank you so much to all of you who've stuck it out. Quick update on me. Our house that we're living in is a reno project, so you need to, accept that it's not the same glamorous filming setup that we used to have. And I just want to say thank you for your understanding. And let's talk about it. So I think that I have made massive strides when it comes to anxiety and when it comes to my panic disorder. I think that there were many things that were involved in getting there. And like I mentioned in the video, it's tough and it's something that is sort of with you for life. Like it's always sort of living in your brain. It feels like cancerous in the way that it can mentally just eat away at you. And even when you feel like you're doing fine and you're going to be fine and you're on a good road, like you can just like think about the sensations and stuff and it can bring you back. I don't want to talk about it too much. I don't want to describe it too much because I don't want to trigger anybody. And that's like the biggest thing when talking about it, because I know sort of the fear of having one is such a big thing. And I know that because I experience it. Like I had the worst anxiety during my pregnancy. And like the fact that I had hyperemesis, which is something where you like throw up constantly. It's not just normal morning sickness. It's like you're constantly vomiting through the whole pregnancy, etc., etc. The fact that I had that made my anxiety so bad. And like the fear of sickness and that kind of stuff. But anyway, let's just sort of dive into it. I'm here. As always, I'm not wearing makeup. I don't want to, like, when I do these chats with you guys, I don't, like, there are other glam things in my channel, but, like, when we talk about this stuff, anything mental health related, like, I just like to come on here, be me. There's no filter between, like, me and you guys. Like there should, and to be honest, like some of the emails that I've received from you guys, they're so open and beautiful and like vulnerable. Like why wouldn't I show you guys literally all of me? So I would say over the last few years, the things that have helped me the most. One, the people who I surround myself with. I think I surround myself now with people who are really, really positive, people who are helpful, but not, what is the word? Enablers. So, well, one, I don't hang out with anybody who like would stab me in the back. Anyone who's like bitchy, like any kind of like red flag that I sense, I just immediately am like, you're not my friend. Like, I'm done. Do you know what I mean? Like I just, especially when I was pregnant, I ended up getting close to a few people who were just not good for me. Like they were not nice people. They constantly talked behind each other's backs. I imagine they talked behind my back. Like they constantly criticized other people. They were really judgmental. They were never happy for other people's wins. And it put like the fact that I was already on bed rest for 9 months, and the fact that, sorry, my thing started to tell me I only have 20%. The fact that I was already so ill. Like I was mentally and emotionally so vulnerable. And then like letting these people into my life where they lived in this state of like perpetual unhappiness and judgment and just like just basic and like they would post stuff on their Instagrams about like how like great their lives were, and you know they were successful in many ways, and getting paid to post things, and like in the back of my mind, like even now I think, oh god, like if the world knew what these people were really like, I don't think they'd like them that much. Like they're not kind. They're not kind people. Anyway, moving on. Like now I think because of that experience and because I think it was such a negative experience for me, and it made me constantly like anxious and question things and question if I felt safe in like the relationships I was in. Also, I had just come out of my last relationship, which was really abusive, and then coming into my husband who's like fucking lovely and like pardon my language, but I just think like the shift of who I spent my time with is massive. And now I think all the time like I'd rather have like 3 friends than like 12 good ones. Do you know what I mean? Like, and now sometimes we'll throw like birthdays or like parties and stuff, and I'll get to like my side. Like obviously my husband played hockey, so he has like loads of teammates and friends and school friends, and I don't live in my home country, so we'll get his side will be like super long, and I'm like, I have 4 people. Like that's it. That's all I want. But like the quality of those 4 people, they're like, that's so strong, but none of them enable me. So, you know, if I'm saying like I feel really anxious, so sometimes I'll say like they know me as well. So I'll say, oh, I feel really anxious about like getting over to yours from like, you know, this part of London or from here to there. And they'll say, okay, well, you know what? Don't take the underground. Just be late, like be a few minutes late and take the tube. And I don't want you to stress and don't take the tube because being underground like makes you feel anxious. Like taking the subway, it makes you feel anxious. It's not called the subway here, it's called the tube. But don't take that. Take the bus because it makes you feel better when you know that you can like just get off, or you can just get in a cab. And like that's the kind of people they are, but they're never like, okay, well don't come, like don't stress yourself, because they know that that's like the worst thing you can do for somebody who struggles. Like then it's just going to become me isolating myself more, like me not getting myself involved, and then inevitably like kind of losing your friends because you're never going out, you're never doing things, you're never like making the effort, even though all of it feels like such a massive effort when you're going through these times. So I would say that's like such a huge thing. Just the positivity of having people who are solid and there for you and are there for you in a positive way, and not like, oh, if it's stressful for you, just, you don't have to do it. Well, I do need to do it because if I don't do it, then it's always going to be built up in my head if I don't do it. So I think that's really important. And like, some of them, I mean, obviously my husband, but like some of the people, they've like gone and educated themselves on panic disorder and like being a friend to someone with panic disorder. And I think that's just really kind and sweet. And like, try to surround yourself with those people, like look for those people, or look for a community of people who also have it. I think especially now with social media, this is kind of like number 2. With social media, I think there are so many negative things, like comparing your lives to people who, like I said, people who are miserable but look like they're living a dream life. People constantly feeling like they need to have all these things or being super rich and etc. etc. I'm like, you know, there was a time where people were just like happy, living their lives just like normal, like, and now everybody needs this like really big expensive lifestyle. Like that's not the way life is. Like, do you know what I mean? I just don't get it. Anyway, but that being said, I've always been someone who wanted a really big life. But moving on, I think the good side of social media is that it's much easier to find people who do have anxiety or panic disorder. And there will always be like Facebook groups, there will be people on Instagram, there'll be people on Twitter / now Threads, or on TikTok. And I bet you if you like look enough, like I bet you don't even need to look that hard, but if you look enough, I bet you will also find people who have anxiety or panic disorder in some way or another and can sympathize with you, and therefore you guys can be buddies in that way where you can sort of be accountable of like, no, don't back out of it, let's do it, like we can do it together, we can breathe, like we can, stop and like meditate. Like if you need to spend like 20 minutes in the bathroom just like meditating and like breathing to get your prefrontal cortex oxygenated and getting everything turning back on in your brain so you have rational thought again, then like I'm okay with that. And that's what you want. You want that in your life. So I would say that's number 2, like just get it, like using social media to connect with people. I think that's been huge for me in my life. Seeing I wasn't alone, essentially. Number 3, I would say, is you can go to therapy, you can take the meds, but at the end of the day, you need to do like deep trauma work. A lot of us have trauma. Like a lot of us have trauma that we don't even acknowledge. I knew I had trauma. I didn't have the easiest upbringing. I had a lot of abuse in my past. I had, just loads of things. I won't get into them all. Some of you already know some of them. But essentially, I think like coming out of lockdown, so many people had so much more anxiety, and they had a lot of issue going back into the world and had a lot of trouble going back into the world. And I talked to a friend about this who had, developed this, and he was saying to me like, I don't understand. I never had anxiety my whole life. And I was like, well, that's because when you were like locked inside, you considered that traumatic. Like that was traumatic for you. Not being able to go out and do the things that you wanted to do felt traumatic to you. Like it doesn't matter if like trauma can be whatever it is to you. So it doesn't matter if it was, not, being, RAPE or like, being abused. I don't know why I spelled that. I'm so used to like TikTok now where you have to like, change out certain things. I think that so often we just assume trauma is like, oh, well, like PTSD is, war. PTSD is for like people of sex crimes, like et cetera, et cetera. Like, no, it's not. Like PTSD can be from bullying. PTSD can be from isolation. Like we are not meant to be alone. We are not meant to be isolated. That's not the way the human condition is. So you need to address these things. So, and I think that like going to some sort of therapist who has a trauma base is really important, especially with anxiety, because you kind of need to know what your triggers are and then figure out how to manage them. I'm going to break this video up into 2, I've decided. So this is episode 1 or volume 1. There's only going to be 2. But yes, therapy, I think, so I started with this amazing therapist. She works from London / UK, and her name's Ruth Adams. And so she works within hypnotherapy. She treats a lot of like trauma and childhood, and you can see how basically every reaction you have to things as an adult is linked to what you learned as a child. And that is a lot of the work that she does. So I think that has been extraordinarily helpful with my anxiety, and also helping me identify when somebody does something now. So say, I don't know, say my husband's just like really busy. I'm going to use like kind of like a simple, maybe sort of like maybe vapid example. But say my husband's like really, really busy and I've like sort of not been getting any attention, like, you know, lots going on at work, lots going on with hockey, lots going on with our daughter, like I'm just not really getting anything. And then I try to like have a conversation with him and he's dead tired and we're on the sofa and I'm like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And he's like half answering, sort of scrolling through his phone. And then I just get like fucking livid. Like, obviously I have worked on like trigger responses. So at this point, I wouldn't be like, what the hell? Like, why are you being such an asshole? Like, you don't even care. You're not even looking at me. Like, when I probably at one point in my life would have responded that way. Which then again, like I'm going from 0 to like, I don't know, 90, 100, like something which is a high anxiety state. Like, so I'm already shooting to like a high level of emotion and a high anxiety state, like straight up out of the gate, versus now being like, hey, you know what? I need you to stop your phone for a second and I need you to listen to me. I am feeling really neglected and really ignored, and that feels like a trigger to me, and I can feel that I'm getting agitated and annoyed with you, and I don't want to be in that way. I don't want to be in that state. I don't want to feel those feelings, and I'd like you to instead talk to me now. And like, let's turn off the TV, let's turn off devices, like maybe let's play a game tonight, like let's just relax and be together. And that is so much more productive than literally starting the conversation with an argument. That's all I did for years. And I think that's what so many people do, especially when you're living constantly in a higher anxiety state, which so many of us are. We can't help it. This is the way we've been wired. And it's unfortunate. This is why I kind of want to make this two episodes, because I think there's like other tips that I have that require example, and I don't want this video to be too long. I want these to be like easy to digest. So I think, yeah, just even like starting there is great. But yeah, and a lot of times, like if I did say something to him like that, he would be like, okay, so like what, like why is it that you feel ignored, or why is it, do you know what I mean? And I can also then say, oh well, when I was young, like, you know, like my parents used like ignoring me as a punishment, like, you know, treating me like I didn't exist, and that just causes me like one, anger of not being heard and not being cared for, but also like a lot of anxiety, like I'm doing something wrong, or like the person I'm with doesn't really love me that much. And so, you know, that's like such a better place to start. And obviously I don't feel that way anymore in my life, but I think, you know, like you need to face the things that cause you to feel your pain. And okay, I'm gonna kind of leave it here, because I think it's like important to recognize those things, but it's important also not to like wallow or be too deep in them. And like once you sort of feel like you've moved on from traumas in your life, I think it's good to like move off of them as much as you can, in the sense of like, you just want to live in like a high vibrational good state, right? And I think it's so easy, especially when you're like a child of trauma, to just be sort of wired to stay in kind of like a more depressed state from the things that you've gone through. And I think that's something that I've also really learned not to do. Anyway, I'm going to end this here. I'm really happy that I hopefully get to help some more people here. And yeah, video 2, I'll do it in the next few days, probably in 2 days. But I usually upload the same day, so because they don't require editing. So I will talk to you guys soon.